By listening to this podcast, you agree to not use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in yourself or others, including, but not limited to, patients that you are treating. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast. Under no circumstances shall any guests or contributors to the podcast or any employees, associates, or affiliates of the Neuroendocrine Cancer Awareness Network be responsible for damages arising from use of this podcast. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Let's Get Real with NCAN. I'm your host, Mike Wayman. And before we get into our fun discussion with an advocate and the leader of the Nebraska Support Group, Julie Riecken, I want to remind everybody our next conference is going to be in Cleveland, Ohio this September. More info at netcancerawareness.org. And you can get all the info on our social media pages at NetCancerAware on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So without further ado, our guest today, Julie Riecken.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for, you are kind of a staple here when it comes to NCAN. We really appreciate all the things that you've done for us and running your own support group and all that kind of stuff. But take us to the beginning. 2014, your journey
Sure.
as a NET patient.
Sure. So I was having pretty terrible symptoms, constant diarrhea. It started, once a week, then it was 3 times a week, then it was every single day, and it became pretty terrible. Sought help from my doctor, my primary care physician, and was sent to a gastroenterologist. And eventually, after a series of tests, they saw something pressing against my stomach in an endoscopy, had the CT scan, and it was a tumor about the size of a lemon on my pancreas, on the tail of my pancreas. And then I had innumerable spots on my liver. About 30% of my liver was involved some way or another in with neuroendocrine cells. So I started immediately. I got directed to a great local oncologist, great guy, still see him today as for my local needs. And he started me on Sandostatin right away. And it was like a miracle, like I was a human being again. The medication was incredible. Fast forward, I kind of had some issues the following spring. That was October of 2014 that I was diagnosed. Following spring, I was having issues, breakthrough issues. And so my niece helped me find some NET specialists to maybe consult with. So maybe do something different, get a different opinion. And so that's when I actually got involved in going to the University of Iowa and seeing Dr. Tom Odorizio and James Howe. And right away, the day I walked in the door there, they said, we're going to do surgery. We got to get this tumor out of you. So had surgery in Iowa City in 2015. And that helped. That did a lot for me. I continued on the Sandostatin. Kind of a rough surgery, but nothing that I couldn't make it through. I then continued to have some breakthrough symptoms. I spent several weeks in the hospital on a couple of occasions with uncontrollable diarrhea. I can't believe I'm saying that in public, but it's true. I mean, It's just the facts. And I was extremely dehydrated and just could not keep up. It was unbearable. Eventually, I had PRRT. So that was actually in 2017, 2018. That gave me about 18 months of really good health. So that was a good thing. And then Dr. Odorizio in 2019, in the spring of 2019, suggested that I talk to the University of Nebraska Medical Center in Omaha about liver transplant. And so I went through the process to be evaluated for transplant, it's a pretty extensive process just to be evaluated. And after we got through some insurance issues, I actually received the call for a transplant on May 15th, 2020. So right in the middle of the pandemic, my husband had to drop me off at the door and pick me up 7 days later. But it was okay. I'm very grateful for the fact that I received the transplant. That has actually nearly eliminated my symptoms. Transplant isn't for everybody, and I want to talk about that a little bit at some point, but it did nearly eliminate my symptoms. I still get some flushing, like I know I'm probably flushing right now. At the time, I thought I was no evidence of disease. And in 2022, January of 2022, we had a scan and saw that the little guys were back in some lymph nodes. And I've had a lot of weird issues since then, but definitely have some lymph node involvement. So we're back at it. I'm now on lanreotide every 2 weeks to hopefully keep those tumors stable as long as we possibly can. So that's where I'm at. Kind of a wild ride.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy and it's hard, but I mean for me, the thing that always really inspires me is how you're going through all of this, right? But you still stay involved.
Yeah.
And that is something, yeah, everybody gets the symptoms and stuff, but you are still waking up every morning and putting your clothes on and getting to work and doing what you have to do. But what I did want to ask is, a lot of people, they get diagnosed with stuff and it's very much me, I got to take care of my stuff and things of that nature. What made you get involved more with the advocacy end of it, the support group end of it, all that stuff?
Sure. That's a really good question because my work, I've worked at the same company for 30 years, and I've always been a problem solver. That's my responsibility, is finding solutions to problems. And I, on my own, without some really intelligent doctors, couldn't find a solution to this. And so my solution, or what I needed to focus my energy on, was to do something like get involved with NCAN, do the, meet with other people, talk with other people, try to help other people, because I can control that. I can't control the disease in any way other than doing what my doctors instruct me to do, but I can control how I can help other people.
Absolutely. Now, what is some of the things that you do? I know you are the head of the Nebraska Support Group. So just let us know a little bit about your involvement and what you actually do in the NET community.
So the types of things that I do for the NET community, I take phone calls from newly diagnosed patients or caregivers. A lot of times it's family members that are seeking help for their patients because the patients are a little bit overwhelmed. So answer a lot of those questions, and I really try to emphasize to them to not feel overwhelmed. You're not alone. There are a lot of us here to help kind of guide you in the right way. I also do recommend to new patients, it's great if you have a great local oncologist that's helping you. That's fantastic, and you absolutely need that. But I do suggest to them that maybe it's a good idea to see a NET specialist at least once in your journey, so that you make sure that you're doing things really you're being offered all of the correct tools in the toolbox. And other things that we do in the Nebraska community, we just got done with a conference in Omaha, which was really well attended and very exciting and had great
Yeah.
physicians speaking. So that was awesome. And also we try to do quarterly Nebraska meetings, either virtual or we just did one on site. And so we're going to try and kind of do a hybrid of that so that Nebraska's a big state. And so we try to attract people from all the way in the western part of Nebraska to Omaha and Lincoln areas, and certainly any other states that don't, where Omaha maybe is closer to you than, let's say, going somewhere else.
Sure. Now, in terms of getting involved.
Yes.
What made you want to get involved as opposed to a lot of people, they just kind of, when they get sick, they become kind of shut-ins. They don't necessarily do the outreach and stuff like that. But one thing that I noticed in the NET community is that patients immediately go, all right, well, how do I help? How do I get involved? How do I start doing things? So what was your spark? What made you want to get involved with the community?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I just felt like it was something that I could control. So much of the disease was out of my control. And so by getting involved with others, by reaching out, I remember talking to Marianne the first time and just feeling like, somebody finally gets it. So that helped me. And then I wanted to do the same for others. Neuroendocrine tumor is a very lonely disease because we have a lot of symptoms that are just, you're the only one that's experiencing it. You're the only one that actually feels it. You're the only one in the bathroom when you're sick. So having other people to share information with and let them know that they're not really alone. There are other people. You didn't do this. And I just think having that camaraderie and having people to talk to about the issues that go along with NETs is very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about talking to new patients and giving tips to new NET patients. So what are some tips that you would give to newly diagnosed patients?
Well, first of all, don't be overwhelmed. You want to make sure you have good insurance, obviously. Don't pay too much attention to the bills because that can actually overwhelm you. If you have decent insurance, it's going to handle it. Don't feel overwhelmed by this. And don't worry about that. Obviously, you have to worry about money, but what insurance is paying for, that's what they need to do. There are a lot of also other programs. For example, if you're on Sandostatin, you can go to Novartis and they have a copay assistance program. So if you have a high deductible, high copay, they can help. Ipsen Cares, so Ipsen is the manufacturer of lanreotide. They have a similar program. The first year that I was diagnosed, I didn't know that. And so I paid all of the deductibles and copays, not knowing that there was somebody that would help me pay that. And just that's taken a lot of pressure off. And really that's for any chronic disease. It doesn't matter if it's one of the diseases or one of the medications for neuroendocrine. It could be anything. Check and see if there's a copay assistance program. Check to see if your oncologist office has an advocate, like a patient advocate that can just help you navigate some of those things that are kind of complicated, whether it's insurance issues or eventually maybe, if your situation becomes serious, they'll help you with things like disability and that sort of thing. So just last month, I got a phone call from an advocate and they had some gas gift cards. And so they sent out some gift cards for helping with trips to the doctor. So things like that can always help.
That's amazing. That's actually something that hasn't been brought up on this show a lot. And I definitely think that's a super super powerful message. And yeah, the resources are out there, and it's just a matter of being a little bit creative and finding them. So to have somebody like you on the team to kind of help people navigate those treacherous waters is really amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I have been known to be a stalker to find resources. So it's okay.
No,
You
you
have to
have
be
to.
your own advocate. And whether it's finding the right doctor or the right treatment or finding resources to help you with that, you got to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Now, in terms of a patient's treatment and stuff like that, what do you think or why do you think it's so important for each patient to be heavily involved in their treatment plan? Because,
Sure.
again, many people, they just kind of, okay, doc, whatever you say, whatever you think needs to be done, no problem, sit back and just go with that. Why do you think it's so important for people to be an advocate for themselves and be involved in their plan?
Yeah, well, there's pros and cons to almost every medication, every treatment, and you kind of need to understand those because there will be times where the doctor will say, "Well, we could do this or we could do this," and it kind of depends on your lifestyle and how much you want to go to the doctor versus medications that you need to take. I think it's just important to really educate yourself and also know what tools are in the toolbox. So there are a lot of things, whether it be, Sandostatin. I also took octreotide daily injections for rescue injections. Eventually, I was on lanreotide. I've done PRRT. I did bland embolization on my liver, and eventually, I did liver transplants. So there were all of those different tools in the toolbox, and it was helpful to kind of know what makes sense to do and when, and because you got to make sure you still have some cards left
Yeah,
to play. So I just think, plus it's a way, like I said earlier, there's so much that's out of your control, but if you can educate yourself, then you have a little bit of control.
for sure. For sure. So before we sign off here, I want to know what is your biggest message to paint new patients or patients that have been around in general for a long time?
Sure.
What is the number one message that you think needs to be known and out there?
So first of all, you're not alone. There are more of us than you think. Make sure that you see a net specialist at least once so you know what tools are available to you. I do want to say I did eventually end up with a liver transplant. That's not common. And so, if you hear me saying that I had a liver transplant and you go to your doctor and they say absolutely not, that's probably a normal reaction. It was necessary for me. We're all different. And we're all different, but you're not alone. So we all have different stories. We all have different symptoms. Neuroendocrine's kind of cruel that way in that, we all it's not this one path that we all go down, but there are others that you can talk to and not feel alone, and make sure that you do your research, use the tools that are available to you. There's a lot of information on NCAN's website, and attend some meetings. I know on a nice spring day when it's nice out and you have the choice of spending the day with your family or going to a meeting where you're talking about cancer, I get that, but it is helpful. And I think every time somebody goes to a meeting or attends a virtual conference or attends an in-person conference, you leave feeling better about things because you're aware of what's available to you.
Great, great. Julie, just let everybody know where they can find everything going on with the Nebraska Support Group, and the things that you have going on over there. Where can they find you and that stuff?
Sure. So my email address is ncan.nebraska@gmail.com. Hopefully everybody knows how to spell Nebraska. Um, and So you can email me for any information. I also update the person that manages the NCAN website with all of the dates and locations of where our meetings are going to be held. You can always give me a call. All of that information is on NCAN's website. If you don't write it down today, you can definitely go to the website and grab that information and give me a call or email me. I'm always happy to talk about anything. And if someone out there is watching this and maybe you are being proposed for a liver transplant, I'm certainly willing to take those calls as well. So.
Great. Julie, thank you so much for
Sure.
joining us. Everybody, thank you for joining us on Let's Get Real. She talked about the website, so if you want to know a little bit more about the Nebraska Support Group, or if you're going through something similar to Julie and her journey, go to netcancerawareness.org. I do believe it is under the support group tab, and just look for the Nebraska chapter, and she'll be able to help you out. Again, our next conference is in September 15th in Cleveland, Ohio. Going to be a great program. For more information, go to our social medias at NetCancerAware. And thank you guys again for joining us on Let's Get Real.